And welcome back. Well, our next guest is a nationally recognized expert who has helped thousands of people across the country with the daunting and often very painful process of managing their deceased loved ones' possessions. Joining me now is Julie Hall, aka the Estate Lady. She's got a new book. It's called Inheriting Clutter: How to Calm the Chaos Your Parents Leave Behind. And she's got tips for having important family conversations about their stuff. Good morning to you, Julie.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me. I think this topic is just so important and so hard. You deal with this every day, is the importance of having these conversations about final wishes with our parents. Why is it so hard for people?
I think it's hard for people because nobody wants to think about that. It's very sad, and nobody wants to talk about it because it's, I guess, awkward and uncomfortable. But after 30 years in the industry, I can assure you it's very important to have those conversations, so especially the adult children have some type of roadmap to follow, some type of trusted guidance.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you help people with every aspect of this, including staying out of those family feuds. So one of the things, I mean, you talk about the fact you need to get a grasp of the financial situation, but also then you need to start to declutter the home. How do you begin that task?
Well, I think everything begins with a conversation. And you know, I always encourage my clients, you really need to come from a place of care and compassion with your parents. Remember that they are the Depression era generation. They are the silent generation. They don't like to talk about personal things, and their possessions are very important to them. So, you know, from my perspective, we spent an entire lifetime collecting them, inheriting them, buying them, taking care of them, but nobody takes the time to make a plan for them. So for the children to approach the older parent, it's like, you know, Mom, you've always been there for me. I think it's time that I'm there for you, and you've got so much stuff here. Why don't you and I work together and start thinning this out just a little bit? And I don't mean disrupting any of the really important things, but how about all the paper in the house, the catalogs, the magazines? And we haven't even begun to talk about everything in the kitchen, like the Cool Whip containers and the mayonnaise jars and the pie tins.
We showed some of that, and that's kind of how we teased you coming up, as those Cool Whip containers, the peanut butter jars, the whatnot. My mom has them. I think we all can resonate with that sentiment. And so thinning out, I like that terminology. And another thing you say is, you know, if you put in the mindset, let's help those less fortunate, that maybe we can donate some of these things. Oftentimes that generation is more receptive too.
I think so too, and there's a lot of unfortunate situations in the world, and when we look in our closets, I mean, we have to get real, whether it's our parents' closet or our own closet. You know, we've got clothes we're never going to wear again. We have shoes we're never going to wear again, and statistically, we only wear and use 20% of what we own, which means 80% of it is just filling up space.
So true, and yet it's so hard to let go of. One of the things I love that you talk about is talking about family heirlooms and personal property. Something my mom has been really good about is making a list of things that are important and asking what things I would like. And I told her that I love the fact that she's done that before there's any problems, before there's any illness, because it doesn't make it so painful.
Oh, you need to give your mom a really big hug, because what she's trying to do is she's trying to prepare ahead of time. And I think personally, either gifting ahead of time or creating a wish list, which is really what your mom is doing, is a beautiful thing to do, because it will eventually minimize contention and potential fighting in the family. You know, my mom took it a step further, and she started gifting while she was still alive, which I thought was amazing, because you could see the joy on the recipient's face. And I remember she gave me a pretty ring that I always admired as a child. She gave it to me, and she died shortly thereafter suddenly. So I have that very special memory of my mother.
What a neat gift. That really is. What happens though, you know, you mentioned a sudden death, or if someone does pass, or even they move out of the house. What happens then? Because you mentioned starting from the attic and working down, correct?
Yes, well, it depends on what the children are wanting to do. If the ultimate goal is to sell the largest asset, which is usually the home, the kids don't know where to begin, and they become paralyzed, and then they become anxious and angry and resentful. So I always say, look, start from the top down and work as a team, and you start cleaning out the attic because most of what's up there is just going to be discarded. But as you work your way down, what's really important to understand is that you start dividing things into different piles. What should be donated, what should be sold, what can be discarded, and what should we keep? And that's when it may help to bring in a professional, someone who does what I do, to do a walkthrough and help them ascertain what has value versus what doesn't, so the kids can make good decisions and have peace of mind.
I like that. So the 4 piles, having an appraiser, as you mentioned, or someone who can help, because a lot of times antiques hold a lot of value and we think it's junk. So I think that's very important. You say have passwords, keys, and codes, know locations of things, as well as just keeping the siblings in touch. We're out of time, but what last note would you want everyone to know?
I'd want everybody to know to speak openly about it. Everybody needs to be on the same page, because unfortunately one day that phone call will come, and it's far better to have a plan for it than to not.
Oh, Julie, you're great. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you can get a hold of our book. It's called, again, Inheriting Clutter, How to Calm the Chaos Your Parents Leave Behind by Julie Hall. You can find it at theestatelady.com.